Summer. Long days, warm nights, and that one tiny, high-pitched buzz right in your ear that can drive you absolutely crazy. We've all been there. But have you ever stopped to wonder why those little pests seem to pick on you and leave your friends alone? Well, let's get into the science of it. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You're out trying to enjoy a nice evening, and you just feel like you have a giant neon sign over your head that says all you can eat buffet. Meanwhile, the person next to you is totally fine. It really does feel personal. Turns out you're not imagining it. There's a real reason you might be a so-called mosquito magnet. Okay, so let's dive into this puzzle, the mosquito magnet mystery. For years, we've heard all kinds of theories. It's your blood type, or you ate a banana, or something about your perfume. But what does the actual science have to say? Well, thanks to some brand new research published in Science Advances, we might finally have a solid answer. A team of scientists decided to really get to the bottom of this by essentially decoding the mosquito's game plan. And to do that, they had to build something pretty cool. So let's step inside their lab at Georgia Tech, into what they called their high-tech mosquito chamber, where they could watch these things in action. The mosquitoes in question, by the way, were the Aedes aegypti, a very common and pesky species. So what does this place look like? Well, picture this, a big enclosed space buzzing with hundreds of mosquitoes. And the key to the whole operation was a set of 3D infrared cameras. This allowed the scientists to track the exact flight path of every single mosquito in real time. It was basically like they set up a super advanced air traffic control system, but for insects. And I absolutely love how one of the co-authors, Christopher Zoe, put it. He said, "They're like little robots. We just had to figure out their rules." That's such a great way to think about it. Not just a random chaotic swarm, but a bunch of tiny machines all operating on a specific program. The trick was cracking that program. So with that mindset, that these are just little robots with a set of rules, the scientists went to work like detectives. They started setting up experiments to follow the clues and figure out what exactly makes a mosquito change direction and say, "Yep, that's what I'm going for." They started simple. First, they put a dark sphere in the chamber. It got some attention, but only if a mosquito was kind of already heading that way. Then they tried a puff of carbon dioxide, the gas we all breathe out. That worked, but only from a short distance. But then they tried both at the same time, a dark sphere plus a puff of CO2. And bam! That was the magic combination. It was like a magnet they just couldn't resist. Right, so a black ball is one thing, but that's not what mosquitoes are hunting in your backyard. The team had to ask the big question, how does this all translate to an actual living, breathing person? And this is where the research gets really interesting and, frankly, pretty brave. Christopher Zoe, the researcher we heard from earlier, actually went into the chamber himself. He literally became the bait for science. He wore different outfits, all black, all white, even a split black and white look, just to see what the swarm would do. And sure enough, they were most drawn to his head and shoulders, which makes perfect sense because that's where we exhale the most CO2. So after tracking thousands of these individual flight paths and running all the experiments, the team crunched the numbers. And by doing that, they finally cracked the attraction code. And the answer to why mosquitoes swarm is probably not what you'd expect. Here it is, the big discovery. We see a swarm and we think it's a group activity, right? Like they're working together, following a leader to the target, but they're not at all. Each and every mosquito is acting completely on its own, independently. They're all just following the exact same two-part signal, a dark shape combined with the scent of carbon dioxide. The other co-author, David Hugh, came up with the absolute perfect analogy to explain this. He said it's like a crowded bar. Think about it. People in a popular bar aren't there because they all followed each other inside. They're all there independently because they were attracted by the same cues, the music, the lights, the promise of a good time. So let's just break that down. The mosquitoes are the bar patrons. The cues they're programmed to follow, that dark visual shape and the CO2 we breathe out, are like the bar's great music and drink specials. They aren't coordinating their attack. They just happen to all end up in the exact same spot, on your arm, because they were all individually drawn to the same irresistible signals. Okay, so this is all really fascinating science, but what does it actually mean for us? How can we use this new knowledge to our advantage? This brings us to the most important part, your mosquito defense plan. Now, on a big scale, these findings could lead to way smarter mosquito traps. Most traps today just blast out light or CO2 all the time. But this research suggests that a trap that pulses its signals, maybe flashing a light and releasing CO2 in bursts, could be much more effective and efficient, only turning on a suction fan when it's most likely to catch them. That's the future of mosquito control. But what about this summer? What about tonight? What's the one practical thing you can take away from all this to protect yourself right now? It's actually incredibly simple. Here it is. Wear light-colored clothing. That's it. Since we now know that a dark visual shape is the first thing that catches their eye, wearing white, beige, or pastels makes you a much less obvious target. You're basically making yourself harder for their robot brains to spot from a distance. So there you have it. The swarm isn't some personal vendetta against you. It's just a bunch of tiny, independent robots all following the same simple two-part program. And now that you know their secret, you can actually outsmart them. The only question is, what's your go-to light-colored outfit going to be this summer?